Hi, I'm Nancy Cook, and this is my grandson, Paul Flores. Yeah, you silly Willie. We've lived together for 35, 36 years now. Um, Lost his mother through cardiac arrest, so, he is multiply handicapped. As you can see, he doesn't speak. He does make sounds, and he knows what he likes and doesn't like. So we started coming to the library. We lived in Birch Bay for a number of years, and we would come to the library because this lifestyle is kind of isolating. If you're doing full-time care, you find you get friends and they sort of disappear because you can't go to all the places they go.
Sure.
And so reading has always been part of my life. And it takes me out of my circumstances. And I think it helps you to, whether you read a autobiography or a historical novel, whatever the novel is, you can't think about anything else except what you're seeing on the page. And so it takes you out of, maybe you're feeling a little depressed or lonely. It's friends. I find books are my best friends. And so Paul has come along to the library with me for since I've had him, 35 years. And about 16 years ago, Debbie, the main librarian here, and one of the care people that Paul goes on an outing once a week for a couple hours or an hour, they thought it would be a good idea if he came to the library with the little ones. And so Debbie was all for it, and it just seemed a great fit because he loves to watch little people. I mean, he's like a little guy, he's like 1 or 2 in some ways, and so watching the little ones play, he won't ask you for dinner, for nothing. He just wants to watch them, and he loves it. And the little ones, at first were a little wary of him, like they usually are. But they've gotten now so that they just love seeing Paul. He's an anomaly, he's a little unique, and he's something special that, they have on their hour at the library once a week, which is usually Tuesdays today. Yeah, and so he's been coming for 16 years. Almost every Tuesday they have the preschool day. And he brings his button. Now, the button he didn't have for a few years, but one of the patrons of the library donated this to Paul. Now, they're over $100 just for this silly little thing. And at the time, we just couldn't afford to buy it. And it just seemed like a lot of money to cut your grocery bill down to buy something $100 that looks like that, right? But he's been using it now for about 12 years. Still going strong. Would you like him to play it for you?
Yeah, please.
Okay, Paul, can you do your button? Okay, do your button.
Hi, I'm Paul. I like chimes and balloons. What do you like?
Do it again.
Hi, I'm Paul. I like chimes and balloons. What do you like?
And the little guys, love it when he does that and he introduces himself. This is actually his uncle's voice because he doesn't have a voice. Mm-hmm. He does have a voice. I'm sorry, I take that back because he lets you know in no uncertain terms with his voice, but he can't speak words. So the library is, well, to me, to Paul, it's an outing that it's his favorite thing in the world to do. I mean, he loves all kinds of things like balloons and chimes and having a bath and going in the water and going for drives. This is one of his favorite outings, is coming to the library. He gets very, very excited. So I don't usually tell him until the morning of because sometimes they call and cancel on us, the people that are supposed to bring them, at the last minute. So when that happened once, I thought, no, I'm not going to tell them until they actually show up at the house, which is always a big, exciting experience when they show up at the door and he knows he's going to the library and he just screams with excitement. And he's very quiet and very reserved when he's here with the kiddos. With story time, he sits very quiet and pays attention. And then when it's all over, he might be a little more rambunctious, you know. And the library to me is one of my best friends. I couldn't live without books. I probably take home 12 to 14 books a week on average. I might not read all of them because, you know, you get books home. But I probably read on average 3 or 4 novels or autobiography or whatever I get a week. You know, when Debbie first suggested this, they have the preschool or toddler day. It was Tuesday, and the woman that was doing it at the time was kind of horrified at the fact of Paul being with the little ones. She said that she didn't want it. So Debbie had to get a hold of... Debbie doesn't remember this for some reason, I don't know why, but Debbie had to get a hold of the head office. No. And they told her, you go with how you feel.
Yeah.
And so she decided to go ahead with it. And 16 years later, we're still doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, and that woman became a fan of Paul's. So, you know,
Yeah.
because the kids, they're fascinated. They want to know everything about him. You know, why does his feet so little? You know, why doesn't he talk? Why is he in that big funny chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to know everything about him. You know, how come he makes those sounds, you know? I mean, he's like a baby to them in some ways.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
these huge rattles.
Yeah.
You know. So, you know, this, I can't say enough about this library. They're, you know, I broke my shoulder, or my wrist. I broke my shoulder first, then I broke my wrist, and I couldn't transfer him. And Debbie came every morning before work and helped me get him up, and she came when she left work for 3 weeks to help me get him into bed.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the kind of person she is, you know. And I know we're not friends per se. Like, we don't come over to her house. I don't go over to, you know, to my house. We're not coffee people. But I know that the ladies that work here at the library, if I had a real problem, I could phone them, and one of them would find a way to come over and give me a hand, you know. He brings a lot of joy to my life, and you know, to a lot of other people's. And you know, when I have people say, you know, why do they, you know, why do they love? They should keep people like Paul in special places. And I said, you don't, just because he can't hold down a job. Well, he does have a job here. But just because he can't do the things that we can do doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a good life. You know? And he could live to be an old man. In fact, that's my fear now at my age, that he's going to way outlive me, and then what, you know, I don't really have any real options for him as yet. You know, we got his uncle, who's this voice, who helps out a lot, but basically it's Paul and me 24/7.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
Which I've never regretted. You know, you don't know when I was telling you a story about before he was born, if somebody had said that to me. But once he was born, there was no question. When my daughter had a cardiac arrest and you know, she lived on life support for several weeks, and when we had to take her off life support, I knew this was my life. Never thought twice about it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't when you love somebody. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But anyways, to top it off, this is a great library, and I'm sure you've figured that out already.